We'll have our play of the day coming up. I wanted to get to Tom Verducci on short notice. Great baseball writer from Sports Illustrated. And we sort of saw this coming. And believe me, this is just the start. I'm going to guess in about 2.5 to 3 months, then we're going to have implosion here. I think that's when it starts to get ugly. And Major League Baseball is all in on this. And Tom Verducci joins us now. How did this come about where we are today?
Well, I think it came about from players trying to get to that next generation of performance-enhancing drugs after the steroid era. It's what can we take that's not detectable, and how far underground do we need to go to find it? And it's basically, baseball pulled on this thread down in Miami. It really goes back to the Manny Ramirez bust. Remember, that was Pedro Bosch, the father of Tony Bosch, who wrote a prescription for Manny Ramirez for a banned substance, and that's why Manny was banned. That was not a positive test, not considered a positive test. So the connection started there, and baseball started looking around Miami, and, of course, the New Times broke that story in January. But baseball was deep into investigating Miami and the South Florida connections as early as '09, and especially last year.
Baseball want A-Rod or Ryan Braun or both?
Well, at this point, I think they want answers. I don't think they've felt like the answers have been entirely truthful in both cases. I mean, let's face it, baseball, I think, still feels like Ryan Braun got off on a technicality. He did have a positive test and successfully won his appeal, and I think that stuck with baseball more than a little bit. And with Alex, it's always a shifting story, and they're never sure where the truth lies. So I think they're following the evidence here. And obviously, Tony Bosch is, that to me was a major breakthrough for MLB to get Tony Bosch to say, okay, I'll cooperate here. Because otherwise, they just have a bunch of photocopied documents that are really not verifiable. But now they can start piecing things together with Bosch's cooperation.
You got Ryan Braun saying he used this doctor as an advisor. Why would you go to this guy as an advisor? What do you need advice for? If you don't take this stuff, then I don't need to use somebody as an advisor, especially somebody who's in a strip mall.
Well, that's a great point, and I think that's got the potential to circle back and really hurt Ryan Braun, because I think if we get to an appeals process, and that's assuming baseball does intend to lay down some discipline here, the players do appeal, we go through a hearing. Obviously, the players who try to discount or discredit Tony Bosch because he's going to be the main corroborating source for any kind of discipline. But you then have to circle back to what Ryan Braun said. Remember, his baseball reputation was pretty much on the line with that positive drug test. And at a time of extreme crisis, who does he go to in terms of having a drug expert? He goes to Tony Bosch. I mean, that in itself tells you that there is some credibility, at least in the eyes of Ryan Braun. And Francisco Cervelli, and I know he's not the same kind of star, said the same thing, that he had a broken foot. And even though he's got access to all the best doctors through the New York Yankees, he goes across the state to Miami, as you mentioned, to a wellness clinic in a strip mall. And he said, I wanted to consult him about my injury. Well, I think those kind of admissions by the players could come back and haunt them.
A sensitive question, perhaps sensitive answer, but you're looking at a lot of Latin players here. Is baseball targeting, or could you get that impression? Is it just a coincidence, or is baseball targeting Latin players?
Well, it's not a coincidence, but it's not a target. I mean, this just happens to be this clinic there in South Florida. I think if there's any coincidence, and maybe not even a coincidence, going back to last year with Melky Cabrera, this runner for one of the agencies in New York, seemed to be the connection between the Latin American players and the clinic in South Florida, just by association of friendships and the circle of people in South Florida. So I think it's more the area, the particular clinic, the agents, and the runner more than anything else. But I wouldn't say it's a target. It just happens to be this is the one supplier. I mean, it's sort of like when the Mitchell Report got Brian McNamee and Kirk Radomski. Anybody associated with them was in the crosshairs, and if you had somebody supplying you from a different part of the country, you said, whew, I'm glad it's not me.
Final 30 seconds. Does A-Rod play for the Yankees ever again?
I know what the Yankees' answer would be, what they want, but ever's a long time. I still say yes because I agree with you. This could take a matter of months to really sort through all of this, and I got to believe if his rehab goes well, I don't see how they can stop him from getting back on the field. If he's healthy enough to play, how can they keep him from not playing?
Good to visit with you, Tom. Thanks for joining us.
You got it.
Tom Verducci, senior baseball writer, Sports Illustrated, also covering the Cards and Reds Saturday for the MLB Network.